Bleeding purple and gold. From the heart of Los Angeles, this is the LakersNation.com podcast with your host, Trevor Lane.
Welcome to today's show. As always, we are powered by CLNS Media and LakersNation.com. Today's show is brought to you by Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com and use the promo code NATION. Get a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale with no long-term commitment. We're also sponsored by eHarmony. Go check out eHarmony and use the promo code LAKERS at checkout, and you get 1 free month when you sign up for a 3-month subscription. So a lot going on in the world of the Los Angeles Lakers right now. Of course, they pulled off a huge trade at the deadline. We've got Isaiah Thomas in uniform now. The Lakers have a draft pick now in the first round in the 2018 draft, which they didn't have previously. So we've got a lot to unpack, a lot to talk about. So I figured I'd bring in Harrison Fagan of Lakers Nation and Locked On Lakers podcast, and Anthony Irwin of the Locked On Lakers podcast and Lakers Outsiders. Guys, thanks so much for hopping on.
Thanks for having us, Trevor. It's always fun to hop on this podcast because it means that I get like a sane person to talk to instead of just Anthony.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Anthony. Well, and just to clarify, before we dive into everything, this is our monthly combined show. So that means that what's going to happen here is we're going to kick things off on this show, and then we will continue this show over on the Locked On Lakers show. So you're going to want to make sure that you go and check out that episode as well. And you're welcome, Harrison. I like to be the voice of reason here. Hopefully, jump in and give you a nice sounding board.
Yeah, it's just nice to have somebody that I can bounce ideas off of that doesn't automatically bring things back to the D'Angelo Russell trade.
Time is a flat circle, guys. This is.
Oh man, this is going to be a fun show, guys. I can tell. Hey, guys, Isaiah Thomas had quite a debut with the Lakers. I was really excited because for the first time, there is a player in uniform for the Los Angeles Lakers that I can look eye to eye. So, and he had a really, really nice debut for the Lakers. I was a little bit concerned about the turnovers, but I don't want to get too much into my opinion of his debut against the Dallas Mavericks. What did you guys think?
I thought he was fine. I think he did a lot of the things that everybody was kind of anticipating with him. He was a little too careless with the ball, but that's going to happen because he has no real chemistry or rhythm with his teammates. So I think the turnovers will come down a little naturally, and then the same issues that I was a little concerned about popped up. The defense and stuff is still kind of worrisome. I had people over while the game happened to coincide with an evening where I had people over at the house. Sorry, your invitation must have gotten lost in the mail, Harrison. But I was telling him, just on the next few possessions, just watch Isaiah Thomas on defense, and it's going to be funny. And we were just cracking up. It was uproarious, the stuff that he would do on defense, and I don't think that's necessarily going to change. So I think it's perfectly fair to assume that I think he can continue to get better, and he played quite well offensively, but the defense is always going to remain the issue. And it's kind of nice, and it sounds so far like he's willing to accept a bench role. If he's willing to do that, then I think everything will be fine.
I think that being said about the defense in the debut, I saw that quickly becoming a storyline on Twitter and on things like that. And, I actually looked at the numbers after the game. And while I don't think that this is indicative of Isaiah Thomas being the best defensive Laker on the court the other night, I do think it was interesting to me that he had the best defensive rating on the team. Now, it was 111, so that's by no means good, and that's way worse than the Lakers' average defense this season. But literally everyone else on the team had a worse defensive rating than him in that game. So while I want to emphasize, I'm not blind. I watched the game. I don't think that he's a good defender, but I also don't think that he's necessarily the Lakers' biggest problem. At least not against Dallas, he wasn't.
All right, so it sounds like Harrison is on the more positive side of this, and I am a little bit more dubious of what he might offer defensively. Trevor, where do you kind of lie on that spectrum?
So you know what I think that Isaiah Thomas is kind of what the Lakers need. They need that go-to guy that can just step up in the clutch if they can get the old Isaiah Thomas. And I'm not sure that he's that guy just yet. I thought we saw some flashes of that. But overall, I am optimistic about having him in the Lakers uniform. I think that he's the type of personality that they need on the team. I know he got kind of a bad rep in Cleveland, but I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like that 15-game sample size in Cleveland and some comments to the media during a rough period, I'm not ready to vilify him because of that. And if I feel like that's what's happened. So many people have blamed him for what was wrong with the Cavs and all these other things that have been going on. I feel like he's got a great opportunity here to sort of revitalize his image with the Lakers and at the same time give the team something that they need in terms of an offensive creator if he's willing to come off the bench. I think that's going to be the big question there. Do you guys?
Yeah, and I think by that same token, you mentioned the 15-game sample size being too short to judge him, especially while he's returning from hip surgery. And I agree with that. And I think at the same time, we also can't just overreact to one game in a Laker uniform. Like, yes, he was really good offensively. You know, mixed results on defense, obviously. The Mavericks were really, really targeting him, which made it more interesting to me that the Lakers' defense wasn't necessarily worse with him on the floor. And I think that might have just been because they were going to guys that probably shouldn't be go-to guys and isolating them against Isaiah Thomas just because they were isolated against Isaiah Thomas. But I just think that no matter which end of the spectrum we're falling on, we just can't overreact to one game. I think we kind of have to wait and see with him. Yeah,
I do think it needs to be pointed out that there were locker room concerns before Cleveland. There were concerns while he was in Sacramento that he and Boogie didn't necessarily see, as Trevor said earlier, eye to eye. Now, the height difference would have something to do with that. And then,
yeah, they would never see eye to eye.
Maybe if he's like a story up, he would see eye to eye with DeMarcus. But then the other thing, too, was that in Phoenix, there was also some of the same kind of whispers and rumors going on behind the scenes that he kind of rubbed people the wrong way. And look, so I think it kind of makes sense that he would have an in-your-face kind of attitude. You have to if you're going to be that small and succeed to the levels that he has in the NBA, right? Because nobody is going to believe in Isaiah Thomas the way that Isaiah Thomas believes in himself because of his size. So I think all of these things can be true. And then regarding what he adds and what he can be on this roster, I think it's also worth pointing out that Isaiah Thomas the player and Channing Frye the player aren't why the Lakers made that trade. They just happen to have deals that are expiring and are valuable enough to send over for Jordan Clarkson so that they can open up that cap space. And that first round draft pick is of all the pieces moved in that trade, far and away the most valuable asset, right? It's not close. So I think the biggest thing is, all right, can Isaiah accept a role, and can the Lakers figure out some kind of chemistry with him as this season goes along, and as everybody figures things out to where they can regain some of the momentum that they had before they made the trade, because they were playing great basketball before they made the trade. And so can they get back to that level while in the last couple months of the season? I think so. I think there's a fit there. There's a natural fit so long as everybody accepts their roles.
Yeah, and we don't know when Lonzo is going to be back, but I think Isaiah Thomas, Lonzo has been a lot better defensively as a rookie than I think anyone anticipated that he would be. And especially offense. So, but even forget about defense. On the offensive end, if Isaiah Thomas can play like he did against the Mavericks, which is a big if because that's not how he was playing in Cleveland, but if he can, then that's going to make Lonzo's life on offense so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. I mean, the player that Isaiah Thomas is the kind of player that you would want alongside Lonzo.
He finished fifth in MVP voting last year. I don't think he's going to do that. He's obviously not going to do that again this year. But I don't think he'll get to that level at all this year either.
Ever again? I don't.
Probably not ever again, because that was just a confluence of the perfect roster fit for him, the perfect coach for him, just the perfect situation overall, perfect time in his career. And he'll probably never be that healthy again after this type of injury. But he is the type of guy that theoretically could help Lonzo look pretty good the rest of the season, which can only benefit the Lakers as they're trying to showcase these young guys heading into free agency.
We're going to take a quick break so I can tell you about Stamps.com. These days you can get just about anything online and on demand, but did you know you can even get postage on demand with Stamps.com? Well, you can. With Stamps.com, you can print real U.S. postage for any letter or any package right from your home or office, all available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when it's convenient for you. Stamps.com will even send you a digital scale so you can weigh your letters and packages and print in the exact amount of postage every time. And it's so easy to use too. Just click, print, mail, and you're done. Stamps.com is a no-brainer. Stamps.com will save you so much time you can access all the services of the post office right from your desk. It's never been easier to send out your letters and packages. Here at Lakers Nation, we're really busy. We rely on Stamps.com to print out shipping labels so we can send out our prizes and all of our mail. It couldn't be easier. I've even worked out a special offer with Stamps.com for my listeners that includes a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale without long-term commitment. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in NATION. That's Stamps.com and enter that code NATION. Well, let me ask you guys this. What needs to happen for Isaiah Thomas to potentially return next season or beyond with the Lakers? Aside from, of course, striking out on max level free agents, but what does he need to show in the next few months in order for him to be a decent fallback option for guys like LeBron and Paul George if they don't end up coming in July?
My goodness, that would be a fallback.
I was going to say, are we being serious? Like LeVar Ball kidnapping Lonzo and taking him to Lithuania.
Look, I think there's a middle ground. Look, I think Isaiah Thomas could be on the team. Well, no, not with LeBron. I think he pretty obviously clashed with LeBron to beyond repair, I think, at this point. But
did you see LeBron's body language since Isaiah Thomas left? Yeah, LeBron and Isaiah Thomas are never playing on another team together.
Yeah. I was thinking, I tweeted this out kind of facetiously, but if I were the Lakers, I would have Isaiah Thomas show up to the meeting with LeBron and then have LeBron be the person to say, like, he has no future in LA. I feel like LeBron would kind of enjoy that. But to actually answer the question, what it would take for Isaiah to be a Laker beyond this season is
ineptitude.
It starts and finishes with his ability to accept a role that can help the Lakers achieve the level of success that Magic and Rob Pelinka want to reach, right? So I think it was really fun and it was really cool watching Isaiah Thomas play basketball last year. And it was one of the more fun seasons that you could make a case that anybody has ever played, right? Because it came out of nowhere. I think he's the 60th overall pick, right? So he comes out of nowhere. He's 5'6", and he finishes 5th in the MVP voting. That was incredible. But inherently, because of how the Celtics relied on Isaiah Thomas, it gave them a lower ceiling than I think people kind of realized. And if you are going to, if Isaiah Thomas thinks that he's going to be the go-to option, the number one option, and a coach is going to design an offense around making sure that he is successful and the team is successful through him, then I think you're creating a flawed team. I mean, there's an argument to be made, and I probably agree with it, that had the Celtics played a healthy Bulls team last year and Rajon Rondo doesn't get hurt, they lose in the first round. It was going in that direction.
Yep, it was.
And Rondo winds up getting hurt. They wind up making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But again, it wasn't particularly close between them and Cleveland. And it's because he is a flawed NBA player.
Well, and to be fair, by that point, he was dealing with an injury and he was dealing with the death of his sister.
Oh yeah, sure. No, that's absolutely fair context to bring up. But I don't want the Lakers to think that he is any kind of number one option on their team. I think the best case scenario for Isaiah Thomas to play a part in a winning team and being a part of a legitimate title contender is if he accepts a bench scorer's role and comes in and plays, whether it's 15 to 20 minutes a game, and while he's on the court, he alleviates the pressure of whichever guard he happens to be sharing the court with. But if he thinks that he's going to be anything beyond that, I just don't think he can play a larger role on a team that has serious title aspirations, as Magic and Rob Pelinka want the Lakers to have.
And what do you guys think about long term with Lonzo? Is he the guy that can really fit in with him even this season? I mean, trying to fit in with a guy on the fly like that isn't always easy.
You go ahead.
I think the basketball fit is okay. It's not ideal, obviously, from a defensive standpoint, but Isaiah Thomas is never going to be an ideal defensive fit with any guard. Like, you could put like prime Michael Cooper like instead of Lonzo, and that would still not be like a great defensive backcourt between the two of them.
Right.
And so, but like offensively, yeah, I think he can do some things. Like he'll allow Lonzo to play off the ball a little bit more. He can shoot a little bit, and so he'll be able to like create a little bit more spacing for he hasn't been a good 3-point shooter this season, but he was pretty good against the Mavericks, and you'd think that would start to come back a little bit as he continues to recover from injury. So like, basketball-wise, the fit makes sense. I just can't see any scenario where he's retained after this season because of the guys the Lakers are trying to target.
I think Lonzo is the ideal guard that you would want back there with Isaiah Thomas. He is for as much success as the Lakers have when Lonzo has the ball, and as much sense as it makes to have Lonzo have the ball a bunch, he isn't a ball-dominant point guard. He's really good at making quick decisions. So if you have a more ball dominant guard next to him, like Isaiah Thomas is, then it can kind of work. And then the other thing, like Harrison pointed out earlier, Lonzo is if he's already a league average defensive player in his rookie season, it's not a huge logical leap to think that he can be an elite defender at some point in his career. And that's what you need alongside Isaiah Thomas. But it kind of gets back to the point I just made a second ago, that do you want to create a roster solely around Isaiah Thomas? I don't know if I definitely would not want to, because it makes your team inherently flawed, because he's an inherently flawed NBA player.
And like last year, that was more of a legitimate debate. This year, like with what we've seen from him, it's like, okay, yeah, no, definitely would not want to build a roster around that guy. And to illustrate the difference, you talked about how he's more high usage than Lonzo has been this year. Isaiah Thomas already leads current Lakers in usage rate with 27.3%, because Clarkson had him beat 27.5, but he's traded now in his one game as a Laker. So that means he used 27.3% of the Lakers' possessions while he was on the floor against the Mavericks. Lonzo this year is down towards the bottom at 17.6%. So Lonzo, like, for all the talk, like, you can always kind of tell if somebody actually watches the Lakers play or actually watches Lonzo play by whether or not they call him like a true point guard, or like, can this guy play with him because Lonzo always has the ball in his hands. Lonzo doesn't have the ball in his hands very much. He kind of makes a decision and keeps it moving.
You made the point that, like, somebody is a Laker, or actually watches the Lakers play by, using the phrase true point guard. I can already tell whether or not I want to talk basketball with somebody if they use the phrase true point guard. But Trevor, what do you think? I mean, do you think Lonzo and Isaiah Thomas can gel together? Would you agree with either Harrison or my assessments of that fit with those guys?
I don't know. I mean, I'm at the point where I definitely want to see it. And I'm hesitant to even bring this up, but I feel like we're almost having the D'Angelo Russell, Lonzo Ball argument all over again that we had last summer when D'Angelo Russell was still a Laker, and we were debating whether or not those two could fit together. I mean, D'Angelo obviously is much taller than Isaiah Thomas, like most people are, but you kind of have to look at it the same way. You've got a guy who's not going to be a great defender playing next to Lonzo, but can create a little bit on offense and can create his own looks and everything. There's ways where I could see it working, and there's ways where I could see it being a big problem. So I'm kind of in wait and see mode. I want to find out exactly what they've got. I want to see what they've got the rest of this season. But I think at least on paper, there's potential there, enough to make me curious to be a little bit excited about it. I don't know if I want to see the minutes come at the expense of Josh Hart, though, which is what we saw in the last game.
Yep.
We're going to pause one more time to talk about eHarmony. If you're trying online dating, chances are you've run into lazy text messages, dead-end conversations, and random matches that don't turn into dates. You can't get to know someone just by looking at their picture. That's the problem with a lot of these sites. So eHarmony, though, is different. It's unlike many other online dating sites. eHarmony takes steps that other dating sites don't in order to find you a more compatible match. They are built to help you find lasting, meaningful relationships. They're not a shallow hookup site. They've helped over 1 million people find their perfect match. eHarmony uses years and years of science, data, and psychological research to send you the right matches. eHarmony brings compatible people together. There are plenty of hookup sites out there. That is not what eHarmony is all about. And right now, my listeners can get a free month with eHarmony when they sign up for a 3-month subscription. All you have to do is enter the code LAKERS at checkout. Stop waiting and start your journey to a satisfying, meaningful relationship. It can be fun to play around with online dating apps, but when you're ready to fall in love with someone and have a meaningful relationship, there's one app that's built to bring you real love, and that's eHarmony. Come see how eHarmony can change your life. Go to eHarmony.com and get started. Enter that code LAKERS at checkout.
Yep. No, 100. And again, I think it's fair to say that Isaiah Thomas at his peak is a better player than Josh Hart will probably ever be. But I think it's also fair to say that Josh Hart is more likely to play a part in a legitimately title contending team than Isaiah Thomas ever will be.
Typical Laker hating Anthony saying that a Celtic is better than a Laker.
Hey, he's a Laker now, so I'm.
Yeah, well, you said peak Isaiah Thomas. We aren't going. You already acknowledged in this podcast that we aren't going to get that guy. That guy played for the Celtics. So.
Well, I also wanted to say, because it does sound like I have. I mean, it sounds like it because I have. It sounds like I'm crapping on Isaiah Thomas, and and maybe by extension, people might think that I'm crapping on the trade or the job that Pelinka and Magic did. I am. That could not be further from the truth. I am really happy they pulled off. I called it a miracle in the column that I wrote for Lakers Outsiders the other day. I called it a miracle that they were somehow able to get a first-round pick when nobody else was able to that day. It was an incredible trade.
On paper, it was a brilliant trade deadline.
Yeah, it was. They did a phenomenal job, a really, really, really good job. I'm just not really an Isaiah Thomas fan. I'm sorry.
All right, well, let's move on from IT for just a moment here. And before we head over to your guys' show, there's one other thing I want to discuss, and that's Julius Randle. Obviously, he was one of the names that was on the block at the trade deadline. We heard Randle, Larry Nance Jr., and Jordan Clarkson. Of course, Nance and Clarkson were moved. Randle was not. So what does this mean for Julius Randle from here on out? I mean, we've seen him play really, really well this season. In your minds, does this mean that the Lakers are probably going to look at keeping him this summer, or do you think he's still going to be a cap casualty?
Anthony, I want your answer to this first.
I would be pretty bummed if he turned out to still be a cap casualty. He has shown, I mean, let's disregard the basketball aspect of this, which at the end of the day is still going to be the most important thing. But let's disregard that and here's where what Harrison said to start the show and made fun of me for to start the show is going to come back up. But part of the reason why D'Angelo Russell was traded was because of immaturity, according to leaks and according to some of the stuff that was said, according to Brian Shaw when he spoke into a hot mic that he had no idea was hot, right? That D'Angelo Russell was immature and remains immature even by 19, 20, 21-year-old standards. Julius Randle has handled this season, I think, incredibly. He has been starting with the offseason where he was working out in back alleys to transform his body. And he comes into the season shredded, positively shredded, as per Magic Johnson's request. And then he does that and is greeted with immediate trade rumors and hearing his name in trade rumors and trade speculation from day one of Magic and Pelinka's regime. And he still, I mean, there have been some moments where he sulks and he's been there were some moments of inconsistency, but for the vast majority of the season, he has been the utmost professional Laker, arguably across the entire team. And that's with all this going on and with the birth of his child and with some questions about his future in the NBA. And just on that alone, I think he deserves a ton of praise. And maybe when people are thinking, is this Julius Randle in a contract year, or is this what Julius Randle is actually going to be? I would point to the professionalism he has shown this year as an example of why I think you can invest in this kid's future. And then the other thing too is that the market this season is going to be so thin in terms of money spent that I think you can sign him to a really team-friendly deal, and so long as he doesn't, let's say he takes like a 1-year deal just so to be able to be a free agent when there's more money to be spent next year. Okay, fine. There's some risk in that, but if he's willing to sign a team-friendly deal, I would say 4 years, 45, maybe 50 tops. I think you have to do that if you're the Lakers, because he has been one of the most impactful Lakers all year, especially defensively, and he has been the professional I talked about earlier. It would be a real bummer if after all of this, Magic and Pelinka still look at him as not a part of this team's future.
And so I think, Trevor, to answer your question from my perspective, I think there is a much better chance of him remaining with the Lakers than there was before the trade deadline, obviously, because of all the trade rumors that were swirling around him. But I also think that just the tenor of the way that the organization is discussing him has kind of started to change even before the trade deadline. You saw Luke Walton's been praising him a lot more lately and talking specifically about how he thinks Randle is a way better player now, not just than he was when Luke took over, but better than he was at the start of this season. And it's why you're seeing him have so much more faith in him. And I think, I think maybe some of this is just Luke and the organization starting to come around and starting to see the value that Randle brings, even though he's not like quote unquote one of their guys. And I think part of it is just that he has continued to get better. He's shown, I think, more consistent engagement, more consistent effort, no matter what his role is. I think that the fact that he's succeeded so much alongside Brook Lopez in the starting lineup rather than being kind of like a bench novelty like he was at the beginning of the year. I think all of these factors, and then just how valuable it is to have an undersized 5 like him that can push pace, rebound, defend at a high level, switch onto smaller guys, all of this stuff, that's the exact type of big man that you want in the NBA. And maybe he's not the starter on a title team, but I could definitely see him as, and this is cliche because he's also a lefty, but in that Lamar Odom type role of that really, really overqualified high caliber third big on a title team.
Yep. I would agree.
I'm in 100% agreement with that. I am on Randall Island at this point. I'm in the firm corner of Randle sticking around with the Lakers. I think that he is exactly what the team needs for all the reasons that you guys listed, and his improvement this season has been so impressive. I would hate to see him leave. I would love to see them figure out a way to hang on to him, and like you said, Anthony, it would be so disappointing at this point if he were to just be seen as not part of the long-term future despite everything that he's done this season. So hopefully we'll see that happen. I think this. Well,
I wanted to say just one quick addition to that, and this is where again I think Magic and Pelinka deserve a ton of credit. Is that they saw Randle's value at he needs to net us a first rounder or we're not moving him, right? And that tells me, especially given the market for first rounders out there, that that tells me that that's the first step in really investing in this kid long term, right? Had they thought to themselves, gosh, we would prefer to get a first rounder, but I guess we'll take a couple higher second rounders, that would have been a bummer. But they didn't. They hung on to him. They didn't blink, and he is still a Laker. And I think, Harrison, the point that you made about Luke Walton and the quotes that are coming out about Julius Randle, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think the organization has really come around on this kid, and rightfully so.
And I think the other thing too is, they're like, hey, why do we need to get a first rounder for Julius Randle? We can get one for Jordan Clarkson.
Very true. Very true. All right, guys. I think that's a pretty good spot to break here, and then we can pick this up over on the Locked On Lakers podcast. So everybody listening, make sure you jump over to the Locked On Lakers. We're going to have the second part of this. We're going to talk more trade and a bunch of other things. So, yeah, make sure you jump over to Anthony and Harrison's show. Guys, thanks so much for joining me on this one.
Thanks for having us, man. This was a lot of fun. I was bummed I missed last month's, and Harrison was the lone representation of Locked On Lakers. I'm sorry to everybody listening to this that you just had more Harrison.
No, I think they're sorriest that you came back.
All right, well, we'll call it a wrap for this show. Everybody, thanks for listening. Make sure you head over to iTunes and rate, review, and subscribe to this one. And don't forget, guys, head over to LakersNation.com for all the latest breaking Lakers news. My name is Trevor Lane. You can follow me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. And don't forget, guys, head over to that Locked On Lakers podcast for the second part of this. See ya.